you.
All right, peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum, Shalom family. Welcome to the Black First Roundtable. And today we're going to be dealing with Sister Fannie Lou Hamer. And so we're going to walk down this road and we're going to learn some things, find out some things, go over some things we probably already knew. This video that we're going to watch and dissect part by part is pretty intense. So what we're going to do is go ahead and begin the introductions. But in the introductions, let us know what was your first thing that you've ever heard about Fannie Lou Hamer, and did it have what kind of effect that it had on you? And so we got pretty long. I want us to get pretty far in the video. So let's keep our comments at least to 2 minutes. All right. Okay, we'll go Sister Gwen, then Brother Hassad, then Neff, and then Doc. And that's going to be our order, the whole program. Sister Gwen?
Okay. Let me think. I think I first saw and heard from her was when I was always heard about her in school, but I can't remember precisely what she did. I always associate her with Sojourner Truth and some of the others. And when y'all start the video, it'll come back to me what she did. My brain is gone on that one. Okay. But that's it. That's all.
Okay. Brother Hassad?
Fannie Lou Hamer. That's one of my biggest heroes. I put her easily top 3. She might be number 1. Seeing what she went through, hearing her speak, the passion that she speaks with, all the real life ordeals that she went through as a woman, as a Black woman in Mississippi, from childhood to, all through adulthood to all the way to, being an elder, that's kind of like the epitome of, most of my heroes, putting it all on the line, galvanizing people, speaking truth to power, making progress. I can't remember the first time I heard about it. It was probably within the last 7 or 8 years. And it was probably through social media, YouTube, Facebook. And then I kind of went into researching her. So yeah, she's up there high on the totem pole for me. I rest my mic.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Brother Hassad. Sister Neff?
Yes, so I am going to admit that I don't know much about the activist and Shiro, Fannie Lou Hamer, and I'm looking forward to learning more about her.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Sister Neff. Doc?
During one of the worst cussouts that I have ever received at the hand of a Black Studies professor, I won't name her in case she actually sees it, but she knows that she cussed out all of us for our lackadaisical efforts. And she said this phrase, "I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired." And that's definitely Fannie Lou Hamer's infamous quote. "I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired." That was my first real exposure to her through a very unique way.
All right, thanks, Doc. And for me, I think I probably was in middle school and I heard that phrase, "I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired." And the question I had was, what are you sick and tired of? What's going on? Because they, for whatever the reason was, they had the thing of, teaching you something great, but not telling you why is it great or why, what's the thing behind it. So I always had that until, unfortunately, I got older, I got grown, and then learned more about her, especially when we were in Mississippi and we were doing our tour to different cities. And we went to Ruleville and to her site, her grave site there. It's really, really nice as well. But if we have time, we'll show that video. But all right, Doc, let's roll with the first part.
When and where were you born?
I was born 1917 in Montgomery County, October 6th.
You born on plantation?
I guess I was.
You know the name of the plantation?
No, I don't. I know my parents moved from Montgomery County when I was 2 years old, and they moved to Sunflower County.
You going to the plantation then?
Yes, my parents moved on a plantation. When I was 2, they moved with a landowner about 4 miles and a half from here, almost to W. Brandon's plantation. And that's where my father and my mother worked as sharecroppers for quite a long time. Sheep pie, where your little lamb? Way down in the valley. Birds and the butterflies picking at his eye. And the poor little thing, he cried, Mama, Mama's gone, Papa's gone. They shall bring some horses, white and black, speckle and gray, all them pretty little horses. When you wake, you'll eat a pancake and ride a pretty little pony. Go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep, a little baby. Mama run away, Papa wouldn't stay, left nobody but the baby.
All right. So there, we'll start with Sister Gwen. Sister Gwen, tell us, where did you get from just that little first clip?
That she came to be respected for an accomplishment, that so much so that they built a statue to her and have a documentary. And so I'm happy.
That was her grave site. There's a big old nice area. That was her grave site. But yeah. Go ahead, Sister Gwen. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's it. And I was waiting on this to be reminded of what she did. Is she the one that wrote the speech, Ain't I a Woman, or was that Sojourner Truth?
Sojourner Truth.
Okay.
Aren't I a woman? Yeah.
Because in the books I was reading, I was reading them at the same time. The first time I heard about them was in middle school too, in about the 7th, 8th grade. And then I recently read about her not too long ago. Really, I think it was her in Washington, about her being in Washington making a speech. Oh, I don't remember. My brain's gone, still gone.
What did you think about the slave houses?
They are exactly as I expected and exactly as I've seen before. After you see a lot of documentaries on it and see a lot of microfiche and stuff, they look very similar. The biggest thing was that they were keeping it clean. And I was looking at the little girl with the straightened hair that's going back as she was sweeping the porch. And actually it was a pretty nice house compared to some. Right now, you can go 10 miles off the highway down in Georgia and see way worse than that. All down south in the southeast, if you go 10 miles off the highway, you will see some stuff. And it is way, I mean, the shanty shacks. I guess that's what you'd call them. much like as bad as the ones up in Appalachia. So don't think I'm just picking on Black people. If you go up in Appalachia, those mountains, you will see some serious poverty. I mean, there are people that live in some serious poverty. And so this, for those slave shacks to be in as well, and I'm not gonna call them slave shack, I'm gonna call them sharecropper buildings now, because that was in 1917. Those weren't bad. Those weren't bad compared to some.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Sister Gwen. Brother Hassad?
Oh, well, down here we call them shotgun shacks. You know, like that's just the tip of the iceberg as far as like, you know, the clip. I mean, nothing really sticks out to me other than her singing. Like her singing really just kind of brings a lot home to me. So, you know, and then with the slave ship and you know, where she was in Ruleville, Mississippi. Like I've picked up and delivered a lot of cotton, you know, around, you know, these United States. I've been all down through Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, Georgia, you know, so I kind of have an idea of what it's like, you know, but I don't have necessarily the lived experiences they do, you know, other than being in the country during the summertime, you know, maybe picking some peas, you know, or whatever, you know, but it was a whole different world back then, and you know, like this video, I didn't even catch the last 10 minutes of it, but I know it was some things that were left out about her life that wasn't included in the video. Maybe I'll be able to bring it up later. But yeah, you know, it was a whole different world back then. I rest my mic.
Brother Hassad, let me ask you, when you were going to pick up the cotton, did you ever reflect like, wow, back in the day, our people were out there from, you know, early in the morning till late in the evening picking this stuff? Did any of that resonate with you?
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, all the time, even the day when I pass cotton field, you know, but you really never really understand it, you know, until you get older and you've worked kind of, you know, had a few days of hard work, and then you kind of think like, oh, okay, at least I got the weekend coming up, or I got vacation time coming up, and then you realize them folks didn't have vacation time, them folks didn't have sick days, you know, them folks couldn't call in late, you know, and then at the end of that, you know you gonna get a fat check when you grind like that, and then you realize they you know, no matter how hard they worked, they wasn't getting no overtime, they wasn't even getting what they were supposed to get. So, you know, as I get older, you know, it kind of starts to sink in a little bit, but it can't really sink in until you experience something like that. And I rest my mic.
Thank you, Brother Hassad. Sister Neff?
Yeah, so to the video, the clip that we just watched, I think the spirit of it to me, in just being reintroduced to her, the spirit of what she represents, I think is to me resembles like what it feels to be Black in America, sort of this defiant spirit that rises up out of whatever adversity that it's put under. It still rises up, and it rises up with sort of like a very fierce defiance. And just even in the introductory clip of that video, you already feel that in terms of where she comes from, being born. I really liked when he asked her, do you know the name of the plantation you were born on? And her answer was so dismissive, no, I don't. Like, I don't care to know the name of the plantation I was born on. You know, and the way she says it with that sort of level of fierce defiance, like, no, I don't. I mean, you know, the audacity to even ask that question. Yeah.
And so let me ask you, Sister Neff, because you used the word that I really like, defiance. How would you teach your child to be when using that word in terms of the quote unquote establishment?
How would I teach my child to be defiant
Right.
to say like a white supremacist establishment?
Yes. Mhm.
I do that now. I teach my son to advocate for himself. And I teach him to advocate for himself in the face of authority, no matter what that authority looks like to him. Even if you're afraid, be respectful. I understand like you might be feeling a little bit intimidated. You might not like my tone. You might not like the fact that I have some backing, right? I may have your father, I may have your grandparents, your aunts and uncles. Yes, it's true. But you can respectfully push back against something that you feel is wrong. So I think the saying is charity starts at home. I think I teach him at home, and even in school, I teach him to advocate for himself. So when he's struggling, because that's our children's first introduction to what a white supremacist structure is, how it sort of tries to mold them. And so I tell him, yes, you're participating in school. Yes, you're around these white people. We'll talk about things like hearing white boys use vernacular that doesn't belong to them. So we talk about, how do you feel about that? How do you feel like about the idea that actually the term bro actually belonged to a population of people that were not white? You know, it was a term of endearment shared between Black folk, African Americans. How do you feel about that now that that's being co-opted? What do you say to that? How do you feel about folks using terms like nigger and it sort of being casual? You know what I'm saying? That, you know, people might use it, fellow students might use it, according to him, as like a joke to sort of get under people's skin. What do you say to that? How do you present that to people who you think are going to be dismissive of your feelings? You know, and how do you rep for your people? So we talk about those things. And I think the way you teach children is by first acknowledging their experience that they're going through and just asking them questions about how would you solve that? And then maybe adding your own feedback, but allowing them to be the ones that are solving the problems and responding to the problem that they're seeing or facing on a daily basis. But the practice starts at home.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Nev. Dot?
You know, the thing that always gets me is it's one thing to read data. It's one thing to read accounts of the grinding poverty that our people have had to exist within, and really to truly make a way out of no way, a way to not even to prosperity or flourishing, a way to survive. So the next generation could have a shot at it. As they say, you know, a picture's worth 1,000 words. A video has got to be worth 1,000,000. And to see that even within those conditions, that there is a semblance of dignity that is held by the children. To see the young lady sweeping the floor, to know that her ancestors before her were on those plantations, and to have a situation where, you know, we're still standing. You know, we haven't been broken yet, and we won't be broken. You know, it's our tradition. It's our way. If our way was a person, I think Fannie Lou Hamer would be that very person. You know, staunch, defiant, strong, relentless, bold, inappropriate, you know, from the white lens. So to see that, to see a video of what it's like in Ruleville, Mississippi to this very day is in many ways humbling and awe-inspiring.
Doc, let me ask you, as the video was playing and we of course saw the slave ship with the bodies in there, what does it say that they left no usable free space just open. You know, you had them all around this way. You even had them in the middle. You know, what does that say about that mindset of the person that sits back to make sure they take up all usable space?
They're capitalists. You know, scripture says that the root of all evil is the pursuit of money. These are evil, demonic people who are in every way soulless. One of the most difficult things for me to convey to young Black folk is quite simply that the transatlantic slave trade, American chattel slavery, any slavery and bondage that occurred on this side of the Atlantic is not our shame. In many ways, that packing within that ship is no different from the packing that happens during any genocide. It is one of the telltale signs of what happens when your moral compass no longer works. These are people who can't get right, regardless of what the situation is, because they are pursuing money. And I use this quote often because I hope that it holds weight with the Most High. And it is quite simply one of the American patriots talking about chattel slavery. He says, if God is just, and I believe that he is, we'll burn in hell for this shit. And there's a part of me that prays that they are burning in hell.
Who said that, Doc?
You know what? I can't even recall his name.
Okay.
It was a guy that reminds me of, you just showed a video of this summer of that guy, the one white man that you like.
John Brent.
Yeah, I think that was him.
Okay. You got that right. The one white man that I like. You got that right. I'm not even gonna call him no cracker. You got that right. Okay, Doc, we can go to the next part.
We are tired. We are sick and tired of children suffering from malnutrition. People dying. The clothes 2/3 of the people have on here now is clothes was been sent to them. We are tired of that. We are tired. We are tired of a lot of things. We are tired of working for $3 measly a day, going home and being too tired to cook what little we did have. Because we have been hungry. We have been taught to have dignity and respect. And you know, if we are going through being bit by dogs, some of them being shot down, some of them being beat in jail, we are not fighting back, but we going on because there's nothing right here. What other nation have gone through what we've gone through? You've never heard of no other race but a Negro that marched through a mob crew just to go to school. Why? We work all time and never have enough food. I said, but the white man be riding around in fine cars. I said, and they have plenty to eat. But I didn't realize at the time he was stealing it from me. Being one of 20 children, a very poor family, sharecroppers in the state of Mississippi, I know what it's like to be hungry. I know what it's like to be without clothes. I know what it's like to be without food, to live in a 3-room house with no washroom facilities, just a 3-room shack. So in my earliest childhood, I remember one day I was playing beside this road and the landowner drove up and he asked me, could I pick cotton? And I told him I didn't know. I didn't know. At 6 years old, I just didn't know. So he told me, I want you to go out in the field, Fanny, and I want you to pick 30 pounds of cotton. And if you pick 30 pounds of cotton in a week, I'll carry you to my commissary store, and I'll let you get some of the things that you want to eat. So don't you like Cracker Jack? That was exciting because I'd never had them. So I went out in the field, and I told my parent, and my mother asked me, did I want to try? And I told her I did. And she told me, said, now, we won't let you cheat. If you pick it, we'll say you picked it. But if you don't pick it, you don't get it. So this made me work very hard. But that week I did pick 30 pounds of cotton. That Saturday, the landowner did keep his promise. He carried me to this commissary store. He gave me some Cracker Jacks and cheese and the Daddy Wide Leg sardines. But I didn't realize what he was doing other than that, because the next week I was tasked 60 pounds of cotton. By the time I was 13 years old, I was picking 200 and 300 pounds of cotton.
I am 17 years old. I pick 300 pounds of cotton a day.
I am 9 years old. I help my mother pick cotton. I pick 100 by day.
I am 14 years old. And I help my mother pick cotton. I can pick about 200 a day.
All right. Now, she started picking cotton at age 6. She dropped out of school at 12 years old so that she can continue to pick cotton. Sister Gwen, what was the most thing that stood out to you?
I wasn't surprised that she started picking cotton at age 6. My mom was born in the 30s, and she says she recounts stories of her and her sisters being out in the field at 5 years old, because her parents had 10 children, and she was like the third of the 10. And the family needed the money, so that's what they did back then. That's what farming families did. And in fact, white farming families also in the West had their children working in the fields at a young age. That's not surprising, because that's American history, really, is where you even child labor laws to this day don't apply to farming families, because they have their children out in the fields doing farm labor at a very young age, 5 and 6 years old. I am angry about it because they didn't get paid for it, not justly. And so as a sharecropping family, as they were, that was a scam. That was just another scam. And that's why I'm comfortable calling them demons and demon kin, because there's certain things that you do that's so inherently evil that it falls into place that you can't be anything else but some kind of evil force on our planet that's infesting our planet. And it's been here a long time. We let you get out of control. So yeah, the demons. But about the child doing farm labor, my problem is that she didn't get paid properly for it.
They're saying that it's age 16 that they can work on a farm is at age 16, and it's certain hours while they're in school. Age 16.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they can't do, I don't know when it changed, but they can't do that now. You got to be 16 to work a farm.
Even out in the Midwest? Your family farm out in the Midwest.
Mhm. You can be 14. Um, and you could be 14 in some cases, family-owned farm, you can be young as 12 or 11, but you still have certain hours and certain time of the year.
Because they got pictures of little kids driving tractors and things.
You can do 12 and 13 can get off at 8 p.m. or 9:30 if it's not preceding a school day. And they can start as early as 7 a.m., not having a school day. Yeah.
Okay.
What about, do you think that for them working out there in the field like that, do you think that was a hindrance of their development?
Of course. They could have been everything. They have all the wherewithal mentally to be scholars, but they weren't in a position to be a scholar.
Okay.
And the same thing, the white people around there weren't that educated either.
Okay. Okay. Hassad?
Yeah, my dad was working probably around 4 or 5 years old in the field for his grandfather.
Mm.
You know, and it built a work ethic in him that I haven't seen from anyone else in my personal experience. He's not a unintelligent man by any means. He knows business. I, I think he did graduate, but he didn't get paid for his work either. So that type of way of operating was passed down. And I know we say, well, it was for the household or whatnot, but when you work, you still should get something for your own pocket, not just the victuals or whatever, especially if other people are getting paid. Uh, but yeah, I mean, like the the fact that it was the plantation owner that approached the child is what
Mhm.
kind of upsets me, and that it
Mm.
wasn't the parents, and that she said that that first time, it's an engineering. It's that first time they'll pay you. That
Mm.
next time they might pay you, but at some point they're going to stop paying you. And but I think that all of her experience kind of led to the resolve and the resilience that she had, and just, it's like, you there are always, positives to whatever, tribulation that you go through. We go through these tribulations, but the way she was able to speak for other people that couldn't speak for herself, kind of, or other people that couldn't speak for themselves, is it's like it's part of the process almost. I rest the mic.
Well, hold on, Hassad, because you brought up something that I didn't even pick up on myself when I watched it. You said that when the white man approached her, that was like a engineering, so social engineering, getting her into the process. He didn't go to the parents, but he went to the child. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? What do you see? What else do you see in that?
I mean, I just see them looking at us as how can they use us, and no matter what age, there is no filter. you know, and that they didn't even have the respect of the parents. Like, nowadays, if you come to my child about something, it's gonna be a problem,
Right.
you know, but they didn't have no regards for anything outside of whiteness, and almost didn't have no, you know, in certain circumstances didn't have no regards for that. So it
Mhm.
was all about money, money, power, period. And can you work? Will you work? Because then you have to imagine, what if she said no? What if she said she didn't want nothing out of his store?
Right. Right.
Oh, that would have been a whole nother thing or issue or whatever. Or what if she didn't pick up to the 30 bells, you
Mm.
know? So it's just a lot. I mean, like, they train you, that's what they brought you there for, and it ain't no age limit on when they gonna start. And I rest my mic.
Mm. Beautiful, beautiful. And that really ties into what Doc was saying about the slave ship, and that they use each and every space. They leave nothing open. And then what you're saying actually with the social engineering, and they decide that they're going to use her, don't even ask the parents. Fits right in there. Good, great point. Sister Neff?
Yeah, I think I wanted to continue on to what High Side was saying. I'm trying not to be emotional. I
Mm-hmm.
think the directors of this documentary have put together something really beautiful, and it's very clear about what's happening. And I think that living in a society where people who have historically experienced this crime over and over, being told every single day that you're not allowed to respond, that you're not allowed to be emotional, that you're not allowed to be human, that you're not allowed to feel this. I think that in itself it's is a crime in itself. Um, but what I took away from that, to what High Side was saying, I think it was grooming. And I think from generation to generation, they continue to groom people in their legacy of slavery, in the legacy of the crimes that they were going to commit. I think last week, or maybe it was the week before, we talked about sort of putting things on autopilot. I do think people were acting out, and I'm not a sociologist, but I think people were playing things out that was maybe designed in some way from what she described about the plantation owner approaching a small child. I forget what age. Did she say 7 or 8? What age was she?
6.
6.
6 years old. Mm-hmm.
And High Side brought it up, and you guys have discussed it. But in grooming, you don't go to the adult who knows better. You go to the child, you allure them in. I'm going to buy you Cracker Jacks or something she said he was going to give her. Luring a child in through little treats that they respond to. That was very systematic. And at the end of the clip, we saw people saying and testifying that they had picked hundreds and hundreds of pounds of cotton by an age where they were still actually children. So you saw the pattern right there being laid out to you. And I think it's enraging to see that. And whether or not these people deny it or not, the fact is we see it, and we can't and we should not contain that natural human response that when something is wrong. And I think that's a part of the grooming that we are in as well, that we're not allowed to respond to this. You're not allowed to see that and react violently. Because it's a violence that's being inflicted, and you're not allowed to respond in kind. That's grooming you to submit to the harm that's being caused to you psychologically. Because I don't know how any of us could have watched that and not have felt anything. Like, my blood is raging in me. So yeah, I think I also thought about the the audacity to refer to people as lazy.
Right.
The audacity,
Exactly.
the caucasity
Hmm.
to refer to people as lazy when this truth is in your face. And this is why I respect ADOS and sort of that radical, bombastic energy. It has to return in kind. That's when people will listen. And I wish ADOS would do the right thing by directing it properly. But it has to be in kind, because that's the only way folks will stand and respect what has been done. And that's the only way they will move out of that denial. You groom a child. You saw the crimes that had been committed to their parents, and you capitalized on that. And you were grooming small children. And even now you continue the process of grooming people. To say you can look at that history and not have any reaction to that. Why? Because it wasn't us, but it was you. You know, so I think that we need to be able to lay this history bare, as the directors of this documentary has done. That needs to continue to happen, and Black people need to allow themselves to feel the weight of the truth, and don't let anybody, don't free anybody, don't protect anybody, don't guard anybody from feeling the weight of the truth. And I think we're still doing that, standing as buffers. And this is why you have all of the conditions of the Black community in America. And it, of course, it extends out to the diaspora, and especially the continent of Africa. We continue to be buffers of this truth. We need to step out the way and allow these people to receive what is their karma, what is the natural progression when you're faced with the reality of what you've done. You know, we're in a country that talks about law and order. Where's the order here? Where's the justice here? You know, the propaganda in saying that justice is blind. That's bullshit. That's conditioning again. How can anything that's fair and true be blind? In fact, its eyes should be wide open. Anyway, that watching that and seeing those children, that was enraging, and I'm pissed off. That's how I felt about that clip.
Yes, ma'am. Let me ask you one quick question. She stated, you know, again, being sick and tired, she stated that a lot of the clothes that they were wearing, people had to send them clothes. They work on $3 a day. If they get home, they're too tired to cook. Then she realized that they don't have enough food, but white people got food. She realized that they were stealing from them. How do you interpret that?
I mean, I think Fanny is a truth teller. Being one of 20, she saw a lot. She saw a lot. Being one of 20, that's the advantage we have as a generation who has come after. You know, and I think, you know, she was sort of in the perfect position to be able to see those things. Probably her older siblings had gone through it. Her parents had obviously gone through it. She herself was going through it. And she was able to tell the truth about what was happening, and still what continues to happen to this very day. It has never stopped.
Excellent. Thank you, Sister Neff. Dot?
Man, look here. They pushed me over there towards Sister Gwen, you know, to go ahead and give them the demon tag. You know, they make it hard to be a Christian. They make it, you know, but I'm not one of those forgiving Christians either. You know, I believe in a vengeful God. So I'm a vengeful type of Christian. The thing that, you know, reading, and this is why I try to stay in my studies 20th century. because I can't stand it. I can't stand really delving into what they did. As the sister put it, they're called Cassidy. The unmitigated gall to enslave people and to do it post-slavery. One of the things that if you ever, Mississippi, I don't know if you've ever been to Tunica, Mississippi, where the casinos are at. Let it ride a little bit when you get up in there. But if you go, I was there actually. I went to the Crossroads where Robert Johnson allegedly sold his soul to the devil. And we go to this casino. I have an aunt, my Aunt Deborah, who loves to gamble, or she used to love to gamble. And I'm walking through the casino. I ain't losing my money. Let me say that. I'm gonna eat at the buffet, fall asleep and get back up, and I'm gonna eat again at the buffet. I'm getting my money's worth. Okay. I'm wandering around this casino, and somehow I found my way to the back of it. I went out the back, and on the back side of the casino are still cotton plantations. Kind of blew my mind. And I met some of the people, over time who worked these plantations. And unlike Ms. Hamer, they're able to tell you for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 generations what plantation their people worked on. Yeah, we first started off over here, and then when so-and-so was born, we moved over here, and then there's nothing that you can do with such unregenerate evil. There's no redeeming them. They're guilty of the sin that they perpetrated. And I'll go one step further and say quite simply that their descendants who are benefiting from that blood money are as guilty as well. Because you cannot convince me that amongst the people who like to trace their ancestry. I had somebody tell me, well, my people came here on the Mayflower. Well, if your ass know that your people came here on the Mayflower, you damn sure know what your more recent ancestors were doing as far as exploiting poor working class Black folk to this very day. And I yield with that.
Well, Doc, let me ask you real quickly. She said that when she talked to her mother about it, her mother told her, well, we will let you, but we will not let you cheat. If you don't pick it, you don't get it. Talk about that some. What do you, because I would have thought that most parents would be like, oh, okay, well, you came close, you ain't get it, let me put some in your bag.
No, not that class of people from that region. My paternal grandfather was married twice. He married a woman by the name of Fanny, Granny Fanny, that's what we called her. And she would give us these life lessons, and here's a woman who did day work for white folks, had no education whatsoever, but loved us to no end, okay? And she made this point to me when one of my cousins had got in trouble, stealing or something. And she said, we might have been poor. And she's talking about when they were raised, her parents were sharecroppers. We might have been poor, but one thing we weren't were thieves. And the parents know it's an inevitability that their child is going to be put into that field. Now, the question becomes, and kind of the same question that Frederick Douglass had to deal with when his master called him and his father called him at the exact same time, and he's torn on who he should go to. Fannie Lou Hamer's parents, they know the time is coming for her to go into the field. So how do we continue to raise her while the white man lords over her? And you see the injection of, even in the state that you're in, you'll be honorable. Even in the state that you're in, the poverty state that you're in, we don't cheat. We stand up for what's right, regardless of if it benefits us or goes against us. Damn, that's parenting.
That is.
That's
Wow.
parenting. You
Can
know
we-
that. Go
Can
ahead.
we take a moment? Can we just take a moment and absorb the impact of that?
Mhm.
To really know what it is to be just and fair, because we've been told over and over that all of the things we've seen is what humanity is. And I'm still looking within Black humanity to find that shit at its core. I can't find it. You've got somebody who's being, you know, when people are pushed against the wall, that's when they usually act out. That's when they usually subject themselves to the most, what you think would be natural, lying, stealing, being deceptive.
Mhm.
And at 6 years old, she's being told, hey, listen, you're gonna have to measure up here. If you wanna do this, you've gotta do it fully. You've gotta do it honestly. You've gotta put in the work, and we're not gonna give you cover. This is the reality of the world we're living in. At 6, she's being taught that lesson.
Mhm.
From people who they were saying were not even human beings. I think that's so powerful.
Mhm. Wow. Very.
I also think Fannie Lou knew the plantation she worked for, being that she worked for him for so long, but she didn't want to give them the dignity or the attention of having the honor of having her being working for them. You know, it's kind of like you know how we do nowadays. If you have some kind of beef with somebody, you don't even recognize who they, like if someone asks you about them, you be like, who are they?
Mhm.
So, you know, it's like she's dismissed them out of her recollection and out of her tongue. Like she'll no longer speak their name.
You know, my brother, you're reminding me of that great moment, and I know that all of us have seen it, when Malcolm was on some TV show, and the guy was trying to get him to say Malcolm Little.
Yeah.
And he twisted and he turned and he dodged. He looked like Pernell Whitaker, dodging that white man's questions. And he said, as for the name you're talking about, I paid no mind.
Mhm.
You know, and that's in many ways what the dear brother is saying. What Fannie Lou Hamer was doing. You know, you're not you know, worthy of me acknowledging you at all. You know, you're that far beneath me. And I truly believe that if we get more of that in our people, that it don't matter what the mother folk do. You know, we'll change our world.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, Doc, you can go to the next clip.
Now, at first, I really couldn't understand what it was that made us never have enough food. We worked all the time, but we never had enough to eat. We never had a chance to go to school. So my first reaction to my parent, especially to my mother, was to raise the question to her and ask her, how come we wasn't white? Now that was my first really being told off and read off at the same time. Because my mother told me, said, child, you don't understand what I'm saying now, but as you get older, you'll understand. There's nothing wrong with you being black. And I don't want you to forget that. Said if you had God had wanted you to be another color, you would have been another color. Said, don't be ashamed of being black, and respect yourself as a child. And as you get older, respect yourself as a black woman. You might not understand what I'm saying now, but one day you will understand. Then finally, my mother bought me the first black doll I had ever seen. But the only doll that she ever bought me was a black doll. And what my mother was doing, I couldn't understand it then, but I understand now. She was at that time teaching me to respect myself. My mother's mother had 23 children, 20 boys and 3 girls. She was a slave.
And we know, as well as you know, that this country was built.
All right. Sister Gwen, what did you get out of that?
I'm going to back up a little bit too. I love that Neff is grasping our story. This is everything that we're watching here is the story of African America. This is how we began. These are the values that were instilled from parent to child. And that her mother teaching her not to steal and to be honest is a common occurrence. That's how we learned and became the people that we are. And so I support and am not surprised. I mean, no matter how poor we were told not to steal, and no matter what. And that's consistent in our families. Only recently as things changed where somebody might be willing to bend, but we were real consistent. The people who were committing crimes in the Black community are the people who were on the fringes, ostracized, disliked, despised, the ones, the thieves and things like that, the criminals. Whereas the other community embraces their wrongdoers and give them political office and keep them moving. The lessons learned and the lessons to note is that mainstream America hasn't changed. They still want to exploit our labor and not pay us. That's the thing with the college basketball and football. Those students, they didn't want to pay them. They don't want to give them money, but they want to get the benefit from it. These are the same minds that will do that. The children and the young people who are working day and night and still not have food, there's something wrong with that. And only after a lot of work did that change up to a point. It's still not right. So I'll say again that exploiting and not paying them is my problem. Hard work I expect, but not to pay them is a problem. I'm sorry if y'all missed that motorcycle ran outside going by. Did y'all hear? Were y'all able to understand me?
Yes, ma'am.
I just want them to be paid. I get the hard work. I mean, that's part of what America used to be like, is hard work out in the field, out in whatever you're doing, in whatever endeavor you were paid at. You're gonna be hard work, but you need to pay people. And they didn't want to pay people. They didn't even want to pay people. And is there any reason why I call them demons? Of course they're demons. Because that's unnecessarily evil. You're going out your way to be nasty. And that's what they were doing and still do. Okay.
What did you think about the part where she said her mother had 23 children, 20 boys and 3 girls?
I think that that was also the way children were. I mean, that was part of the life of that time, where people were having children. What happened was not all of them lived, but that was what they did. There was no birth control.
Right, and that was her grandmother who had the 23 children, and I think her mother had 20 children.
So yeah, that was what they did. That was the way it was.
Do you think that had anything to do with her being a slave, that she was forced to have those children?
No, I'm not sure if she was having them from her husband or rape or whatever. But I do know that if she had sex and got pregnant, she would deliver a baby. And so that's 20 to 30 years of being fertile and having sex about once a week. So babies come. And she wasn't the only one. That was common in that area at that time.
So you don't think that slavery, her being a slave, had anything to do with that?
What do you mean?
I mean, because they're property. And so for her to push out 23 children, and then her mother to push out, or her mother pushed out 23 and she puts out 20, and they were slaves. That's what she clearly said. They were slaves. Mm-hmm. So my question to you, do you think that they had that many children because that they were slaves, making more property for the cracker?
Well, that was part of the process of what the slave owners did, was to make babies happen. But I also think that were she free and not a slave, she still probably would have had a lot of kids if she was married.
Okay, but because when I had to watch the video a few times, especially that part, because the first time I heard it, I didn't hear the part where she said that they were slaves. Because my thought says, wait a minute, why would you have 20 children and you poor? Why would you do that? That don't make sense. That you're having all these children and you can't take care of them, right? Because that's what we say today. Why would you sit back and have all these children and you know you can't take care of what you got? It don't make sense. But then when I rewound it to watch it again to make sure I didn't miss anything, then it clicked. I heard it, and she said they were slaves. So the thought came to my mind, since they had insurance on their slaves, some of them slaves, they couldn't afford to buy right out, so they had mortgages on them. So the question that came to mind, so that cracker must have forced them to have these many children. So my question is, do you think that was something that the cracker forced onto them?
No, not like you're thinking. First off, if they were hungry every day, right? The slave owner was obligated to feed them and clothe them. The slave owner had certain legal obligations for the slaves. So they wouldn't, I'm not sure, I'm thinking her grandmother was a slave and her mother was, but she wasn't. Because she was, I think she said she was born in 1917, something like that.
Right. Fannie Lou was born in 1917.
Yeah, she wasn't a slave, but her mother might have been, and her grandmother was when they were born, but they were freed in 1865. And so during the slave trade, though, that was part of the process to make the American slave population grow, was to have babies rather than buy new ones. And so, but the slave owner was obligated to feed them, give them one outfit per year, and to make sure they have food. So they feed them the table scraps and have them have a garden. Slaves weren't sharecroppers, so the slave weren't supposed to even need to worry about food every day. They had to have at least one meal.
Okay, I've never heard that the slave owner by law had a legal obligation to the slave.
Look it up. Maybe from what I understood when I was having a class on that, that's what they said, that they had to give you one out. I read that, as a matter of fact. They had to give you one outfit, a place to stay, and food. See to it that you got food. It didn't have to be good food. I think you had to get a thing of flour a month or a week or something like that, and some other stuff. It's real basic that they had to give you. And if you don't find it, I'll find it eventually, because it's in a book. And I probably wrote it down in my class. But they weren't, because I thought that I had to learn about it. Some teacher taught me that.
Have anybody on the panel ever heard of that by law, the slave master had an obligation to the slave? Because I know I've never heard that.
I heard something similar to that in a book reading. Think it was the Bloody Shirt, the Bloody Shirt, in one of the book readings where, you know, they had to take care of their slaves, you know, which was their property. And um you know, it's a point that kind of sticks out, but I can't expound on it very much because, you know, it was a book reading and I didn't write down any notes because I was outside walking and listening to the book. So or it might have been They Were Her Property. It was one of those books, either the Bloody Shirt or They Were Her Property.
Yeah, and I also had came across some information that where an enslaver was being prosecuted because of the brutality towards his towards the enslaved people under his control. And they had referenced something about the law and some like the minor obligations that they had to meet as human beings. But yeah, I don't know. I don't remember really taking note of it, but I know that I think it sounds to me like they were forced to start to put some things into legislation in terms of teaching themselves how to be human beings and not literally like the extreme and the brutality. They had to maybe regulate that a little bit. But yeah, I don't know too much about the law, what the actual law was. I'll have to study that.
Okay, because I'm looking over here and it seems it's
I
saying
can't find it either, but I remember it.
in most Neolithic or Bronze Age societies had no such right for slaves. From ancient Egypt and Eurasia,
It was in America and it was in the South.
it looks like they had some rules and regulations for ancient Egypt and Eurasia. Then from Greece, India, the Roman Republic, England.
This was out of Leeds Plantation. In school, when we had to learn it in college, we had to read the papers, the real papers that the slave owner kept. And I think this was out of the Leeds Plantation that I read that. And they talked about the laws, what the slave owner obligations to the slave, where they had to feed them, had to see to you that you got I think cabbage and flour and something else. And they gave the interval that they had to make sure that was provided. They had to give them at least one outfit per year. Didn't say anything about shoes that I can remember. And have them a place to stay, straw, fresh straw, something like that. It laid out what the slave owner was obligated to do once a year for the slave. It laid it out, chattel slavery. And I think it was in the Leeds Plantation papers, where we read the books, their accounts, the slave accounts, their accounting in the books about what they took in. We read their letters where they were asking for credit to buy more slaves. And that was when I came up with the thought that you got slaves on credit and you got stolen land and you still can't make ends meet because the slave owners was barely having money to even pay for all the junk they got. And so, yeah, I read that, and I think it was either in one of my history classes, or it was definitely in a history class, and I think it was in legal history or one of my African American studies classes. But I definitely did read that. And when I find it, because I do have my notes from my books, but it'll take me a while to dig it out. If I find it, I'll give it to you and let you know exactly where it came from.
Okay, so here I found in Louisiana, Black Code 1806, which made cruel punishment of slaves a crime. So the brutality and the sadistic treatment, no shucks, of the slave, it was a crime. But that was the same thing like it was in Haiti, where that they will have it as a crime if you're being too cruel to your slaves. But that wasn't the American way. That wasn't the American way. Because what they have done to us was cruelty to the max. We didn't have those crackers must have had a little what you call it, a little morality there.
Compassion. No, they didn't have that. It take a whole lot to be considered cruel over here.
Oh God.
Too cruel. But that's why demons falls into place. Foul people, beings.
Mm-hmm.
I think they on some level know that they're demons. In the psychology classes I went to, that one of the common things that they would bring up was that they felt like they were imposters. Have y'all ever heard of that? How somebody read about things like that, where the person is thinking that he or she is an imposter? Well, I'm beginning to believe it. And I read this like 30 years ago. I believe that they are imposters and they are inhabited by some kind of being pretending to be human.
Definitely, they're definitely not. They're definitely not human. Ain't no
I don't
way.
think so. I think they're pretending. I think on some level they don't want it to be said. I mean, so much falls into place when you think like that. And when I'm looking at them, I mean, even at the ones, the Karens, the so-called Karens, have you seen the faces that they make?
I was about to go off right now.
Have you looked at their eyes and in their face? Those aren't human muscles. That something has got them and it overlaid. Something is inside there that ain't right. An easy example, or example that we've all seen, was the man that was on George Floyd's neck. Did you look at his face while he was doing his actions?
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't a human face.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Sister Neff, what did you take away from that?
Oh, did High Side go already?
Oh no, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brother Hassad.
Hey, I watched another movie called I think I mentioned it before, Goodbye Uncle Tom, where they had the breeding farms, you know, more people, more hands to pick the cotton. Then when you get into post 1865, they weren't slaves anymore, so the plantation owner wasn't obligated, you know, to provide those things. So with the parents and having more children, you're still going to be producing more as far as picking cotton and possibly bringing money into your household, however little or meager that money may be. You know, if you have 20 kids producing 300 pounds of cotton each, or 1 to 300 pounds of cotton each, you know, it still adds up, but it doesn't add up to what it's supposed to be. And then it goes, you know, the education, you know, when you don't have education, you can't calculate, you know, what you're supposed to be getting, and you don't have the knowledge of saying, hey, when they take this cotton to market, this is how much they getting per bale. This is how many pounds we done picked to get in that bale. You know, what's our proper cut? You know, you don't think like that. You know, you still kind of in the mentality of what's just been passed down to you. But you know, we see that generation started to think for itself and started to ask those questions. And also on another to the first question that was posed to Miss Gwen, Elder Gwen, we also have to think about the consequences that came behind stealing or lying. They were much more severe for us. So, you know, yes, you want to instill, you know, integrity and honesty in your children, right? But, you know, I kind of my little small time in school, or college or whatever, I took child development. And around the ages of 3 and 4, they begin to tell little lies to kind of push the envelope and see what they can get away with. That's just the natural development of children. But when it comes to Black children in that time, and if that was to grow and fester in them as it's okay to lie or it's okay to get by or whatnot, you got to think about the outcome from the dominant society if they were to be caught stealing or if they were to be caught lying. You know, the punishments would be much more severe. And so I think that's what she was also having to drill in them to kind of protect them in a way. And I rest my mic.
Let me ask you right quick, Brother Hassad, with the question, how come we ain't white? What's your thoughts on her asking that question and the answer she received?
Well, I mean, when you see somebody else having it better than you do, and you know, you out there, you working your tail off, you know, and then they saying, you know, you go to church on Sunday and, you know, they telling you this, that, and the other, and you doing all of these things, and you feel like, hey, those are the people that's benefiting from it, you know, and in a child's mind, you know, you would probably ask that question. And then the response behind that, to be proud of who you are and all and all of that, you know, it's I think a parents maybe coming to you know, or already having an understanding, but trying not to, but making sure not to disillusion their child, and to that they know that these things are a process as far as our advancement as a people, and that you know, too much too early can result in a rebellion, you know, but just enough to, you know, because she also sees the other side of the people that don't have dignity and don't have the pride within themselves. You know, you can probably imagine that she's seen some Black people that have just been dejected and that have just, you know, don't have the pride in themselves, you know, and so it's like you know, the grown person being grown and having an understanding and giving the information to their child as best that they can, and to know that hey, we're out here, we're hard workers, we're honorable people, you know, you pass this on to your children, and this is part of our legacy, you know, regardless of everything we going through, this is who we are. And that speaks to the spirit of a people, you know, and that's what's most important. You know, that's what's more important. The memories you have in things, your ethos, your guiding principle. And as a child, they don't necessarily have that without it being given to them. And some do, but you know, that's just a parent parenting their child.
Okay. Excellent. I'll say that I do have one more question for you, but I'll save that for the next round that I want to ask you. Sister Nath, what did you get from that?
Well, I wanted to touch on that point, and I'm glad you brought it up. There's a couple of things I took away from that. And I really want to say quickly, I miss the days of seeing young Black women with a bunch of kids. I miss it. And I pray that those days would return. Whether or not you're able to afford children or not, I think you should still be able to have them. So to the how come we ain't white, this is where I see like Black folk buffering the crimes that have been done by white folk. Because to me, if we adapt more the position of like Elder Gwen, who says these are demons, this is demonic, a child would never have to ask that question. Because you would know that the position that they're in is based on demonic actions. This is not about whether or not you need to have pride in yourself, even though I understand that a lot of the ancestors were doing what they could to protect and keep people alive. This was not about pride. I think folks really could not truly consider that this was demonic, what was happening to them and what was being engaged. Or maybe what we saw was that over time, folks have sort of lost that I think this type of thing where people like slavery is normal, it can't be normal. Because if it was normal, people would naturally be responding to it. They would be responding appropriately. They would be fighting back. It was not normal. It was not normal. People could not fully digest what was happening. So whereas now where we've been able to see it and when we can look at it, we can say if something like that is happening, folks ain't gonna sit around to be talking about we need to have a pride in ourselves and show our humanity to these monsters. Even today, children are coming up and they're looking at their condition because parents are not saying to their children, a part of the reason why you're here, a part of the reason why you're in the condition you're in is because of these crimes against humanity, because of these crimes against you. And that's why children are asking questions. I asked that question coming up. I did. I asked that question to my parents, like, what is this about? Why are we not amen. You know, why are we not why are we here? My child asked the same question. My child asked the same question, like, why is it that they're there and we're here? When he reached a certain age, like, what's the deal with this, Mom? And it's because we're not telling the truth. So I think that's why she asked that question, because it's still hard for people to fathom that their condition that they're in and that they're actually in a war. Because you either run or you fight. And folks are still running, but there's no running away from this truth. These people have even turned on themselves. They're even doing it to themselves. They're doing it to people who, quote unquote, at one point were allies. You know, they were under the banner of whiteness. So when she asked that question, it's a question that I think we've been asking for generations. How many people realize their condition and said, Ma, what's the difference between us and them? And that's because from the beginning, we weren't saying to children, there is a difference between us and them. This is not, you're not living in a world that has an equal playing field, and that there's a particular group of people that are hell-bent on your extinction. And here's how.
Wow.
My only, and I wouldn't necessarily call it pushback, but it goes kind of back to the mentality of the woman that we saw in the video last week, that we's goods niggas.
Man, you need to stay out of my mind, because that's what I was going to hit you with. And I said, I'll just come back to it later. Go ahead, bro.
You know, and then, you know, they use the scripture like, hey, we suppose this is what we get for going against or not you know, being according to God's will and all of this, that, and the third. So, you know, you know, I mean, I can see both sides of the coin, you know, but to have like to be proud of yourself and not to you know, like I'm pretty sure, like I said before, like I'm pretty sure she came across some folks that said, yeah, we good niggas, we some good niggas, and she didn't want her family to have that type of mentality. And I risk my mic.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Excellent, excellent. Well, Neff, let me, I wanted to go back and ask you a question real quick from that. Because you were saying that, you know, you like to see the big black families, and I like to see it as well. But do you think that for them being slaves, having those children, was that free will or was that forced?
Well, if they when they were enslaved, having children was definitely forced. They were being bred. And I mean, that's a fact, to the point where white men were even engaging in it, forcing women and having women mate with men that weren't their husbands, etc., etc. So in the time that they were enslaved, they were being forced. I thought it was interesting too, when even out of after they had fought and won their freedom, you still had Black folk really having children, you know, 20 children, 16 children. You even saw that on the continent. And I mean, I don't know much about white history, but I wonder, like, where in their history does it show they were having that many children? Like they were fertilizing the planet in a way that Black people historically have always done. And I think for me, like I said, I pray again to return to that time where we were having children regardless of what the physical conditions were. Yeah, but the question was, what did I think about what now?
Well, about the 20 and then the 23 children?
Yes, about the children. Yeah. I do think in the time that they were enslaved, they were being bred. They were being bred, so they had no choice but to give birth to as many children as they did.
Thank you, Sister Neff. Doc?
Yes, sir.
What did you think about that part of the clip?
You know, I don't think that Black life could have existed long term without spaces that we controlled. In many ways, the same way that you see Miss Hamer being coaxed into a cotton patch. Her parents were still infusing values in her within this quote unquote slave system. Having said that, I think that we're talking about a system that not only differs regionally, but also differs in regards to who the quote unquote master or owner was. And there's a part of me that that really thinks that even within the system of chattel slavery, that Black folk were able to love each other and nurture each other and care for each other, even within such a demonic system. When you look at when emancipation comes in 1865, these recently emancipated persons of African descent were principally concerned with two wants. One of the wants was the ability to read, because they felt that education was what white folk had over them. But even before that, it was a desperate, insatiable desire to find their family, to find their children that had been sold away, to find that wife that had been sold away, or that husband, or what have you. So there's a part of me that kind of restrains from saying white folk dominated us to the point where they removed even the ability to love, the ability to care for each other. my grandparents, on one side, there was 13. On the other side, there was, I think, 11 or 12. And we can't forget when we're talking about this, how liberating it was for women for birth control to arrive. And when you're talking about not only Black folk, persons of African descent being more virile than white folk, you can look at the numbers right now. Black and brown people are still growing. White folk are not. I think all of that plays into it. But I say that, and I reserve Black love being able to explain a lot of Black children. Yet at the same time, I'm not ignorant or blind to the fact that the decision to make a child's status follow that of the mother instead of the father serves as a financial windfall for white slave owners, because they would do, they would do all these types of nefarious things. You knew that you were considered a good guest, a good host, when you had people come in, because they would have a Black woman, a Black teenager, a young woman, regardless of their age, in the bed to service their sexual needs. This ties directly back to the white woman being the woman on the pedestal who was only to be touched for reasons of procreation. If you wanted somebody to, quote unquote, as they would use in the popular lexicon now, to throw that thing back, you go to the slave shanty for that. Okay. So I think that it is such a dynamic in the slave system is such a sexual potpourri that it's hard to nail down what was the catalyst behind that, because you have to imagine that the way women are wired, well, most women are wired, Sister Gwen is different, but the way that most women are wired, they're seeking a male who can serve some semblance of protection, some comfort, some familiarity. It takes me back to what I was saying about Douglass earlier, that Douglass's father called him at the same time that his owner called him. That's giving, and Douglass's father was furious. He said, when I call you, you come to me first. I am your father. Okay. I believe that those Black families, including the decision to bring in children who were brought on the plantation without parents, our tradition of communalism and fictive kin plays into all of that as well. So I hope that answered the question.
Let me add one more thing, Brother Maurice. I'll be short as I can, because I don't think the video covers this part. At least maybe it does in the last 10 minutes, right? That I missed, that I didn't watch. But we know that her grandmother had 23 children. Her mother had 20 children, right? And we know that how mothers are as far as wanting to bear children, right? And the slave owners, forced breeding our people at one time. But then at this point in time, in 1960, and in the 1960s, see, we never asked how many children Fannie Lou Hamer had, right? Because she didn't have any, because in 1961, she went to the hospital for a minor surgery and ended up getting a hysterectomy. See, this is the point in time when they were forced sterilizing Black women. So, when you think about the evil and the demonic ways of these people, if you become a threat, if your production of children become a threat, or you as a person and having this type of, as a people rather, because just, you know, in that last video we watched, I don't think y'all may remember that when the work and industry started to change, that Black people were stronger and more equipped with doing the work and doing the labor. So that became a threat to the white population down in Natchez. So, you know, they would, if you were poor or whatnot, they would force sterilize you. So I think that's an issue that we can, you know, that maybe later or something that we could touch on. I just wanted to put that on the table before we get away from, you know, how we're talking about the Black family and the children and whatnot.
Yes, sir. Thank you, big bro. Go ahead. Right.
I wanted to add something too.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay, now back to go back to your point, the slave owner didn't have to force them. All he had to do was set the stage and let nature take its course. And there was no birth control. So every sexual encounter that didn't have birth control when she was fertile would result in a child. And that's all it was. All he had to do was let nature take its course.
Well, they also forced the women to have children with men that weren't their husbands. They also forced the women to have children with their own sons. So
yeah, all of that.
It being forced, and you know, they would number the days from when you would heal from your previous pregnancy and giving birth to being ready to give to conceive again. So I mean,
and this was across the board families. There was no birth control.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you're both right on it. From our perspective, when you really, once again, we're talking about a very sexual system that is going on, and the idea of breeding. And I'm glad that the brother brought up the video "Goodbye Uncle Tom," that one of the vendors back when you could have those vendors on 125th Street in Harlem. He found out I was a professor and he gave me a copy of it. But they deal with the idea of breeding there as well. I'm sure that I'm not sure. Maybe you guys don't remember Jimmy the Greek. Remember Jimmy the Greek? He was the first NFL betting
in trouble
prognosticator that they had, you know, and he got in trouble because he was drunk in Las Vegas and he started talking to a reporter, and Jimmy the Greek said, "You want to know why the NFL is 95% Black?" He said, "I'm gonna tell you. It's because back in the days of slavery, they would take your big Black man and made him with a big Black woman, and you come up with a physically superior person, larger, stronger, can work harder." You know, one of the things I joke with my kids about, you know, I tell them I've come up with a way for us, because Americans are really disinterested in any Olympic sport where we're not winning. Okay. Now, when we won the gold medal in women's soccer, we were women's soccer out there. Well, you would have thought you was in Europe. Okay. Now, when they lost, man, you know, I told my students, I said, I've come up with a foolproof way that we're able to win every Olympic event and save some money. We're gonna breed Serena Williams with Shaq. Whatever they produce, all they're gonna need is 5-6 kids. That's gonna be the entire American team. There's gonna be 5-6 people, Shaq and Serena's kids, and they're gonna go over to just tell them where they need to go. And they're gonna go and outdo any and everybody that's over there. It's a genetic thing. It's not happenstance that Black folk by and large are larger than other folk. It's just what it is. We've been bred that way. You know, you don't see the only large Jew I've ever met in my life was Bill Goldberg, the big time wrestler. And they need to get his DNA and they need to freeze it, because he's the biggest thing I've ever seen come out of their race.
Oh my God, Brother James, let's not talk about things that they're probably already doing, please.
Oh, I believe they have taken Bill Gold. If they haven't taken Bill Goldberg's DNA, they missing the boat. Because that's the only one that can fight hand to hand. The rest of them, they get you at the bank. But
Doc, let me ask you this question. What the part about how come we ain't white? What did you think about that?
I mean, that's a child trying to navigate their way through race and through racial understanding. And in many ways, I don't even think that she's talking about skin color. I believe that whiteness in that context is talking about privilege, is talking about rich. I believe, I believe that it holds so much more than just color, because I'm quite sure that she's seen poor white folk before. Okay, that's one of the things that we really don't talk about. That white folk at any point of this nation's history have never been a monolithic group as far as socioeconomic status or political power. She don't want to be one of those white folk. She wants to know why we work hard as can be, because this is the land of so-called meritocracy, that if you come here and you work hard, you will succeed. Why is it that success almost appears to be an allergen for Black folk who work hard? And I always push back against people who try to put that lazy label upon our people. And I tell them, if hard work alone was all you needed to get ahead in America, we would not only run this nation, we would run far galaxies that they getting ready to find. That's what our work ethic has been. That it is, you can't call Black folk lazy. I don't care who you are.
Excellent. Thanks, Doc. Well, I wanted to go one more round, but we are at our time. So I'll hold it. We're just going to do a part 2 next week and finish this, because I really want us to get finished with it, because it's very eye-opening. Definitely, it's very eye-opening. So we're going to go ahead and go to closing comments in our same order. But I do want to ask a question. Dealing with the social engineering. So in your closing remarks, give a little thing about the social engineering, and what way do you think that it should be defeated? Is there, like, social engineering in school, social engineering, in social media, social engineering, in the block, back on the block, what different things, you can pick one thing out, and then how do you defeat that part of social engineering? Sister Gwen?
Sorry, I just stuck something in my mouth. Come back to me.
Okay. Brother Hassad?
I think it's gonna come, like, one part of it is education. Second part, separation. I do think you can educate and redo the social engineering in the midst of the enemy, but it will be such a struggle that separation will, make it easier. Reconditioning, you know, you may even have to take the same steps as maybe they do in the military, with tearing down some of your old habits and replacing them with better habits. Of course, the younger you start, the better. the older you are, I think that it still can be done, with like, and I bring up El El Hajj Malik Shabazz, and his transformation in prison. And he did it through education. So like, and just knowing how you got there, and I mean, I'm not a scientist or psychologist or or anything like that. I don't have no kind of education in that field, so it'd be better suited for them. But like, those are just some of the things I would think that come off from my thought. I rest my mic.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Brother Hassad. Did you want to add anything else for your closing comment?
Oh, no, I mean, can't wait to get to part 2 of it. And I enjoy the film, the breaking it down, and everybody's thoughts on it. And yeah, it can be enlightening and empowering. So yeah, I rest my mic.
Yes, sir. Thank you, brother. Sister Gwen?
Okay. About the social engineering, that I like Sister Neff's idea when she talked about us being the buffer. We need to stop doing that because we are their protection, and we need to stop. Tell the child the truth early on, that and make the child see and understand. When I talk to children, I speak to children just like I do right here. I don't talk down to children, and they keep up with me. They like me. They understand. They like talking to me more than they do their parents in some cases. They come to me and ask me questions, and I tell them the truth as best as I can. And I tell them in the same words I use here. Children can understand the truth if you tell them. And they're asking us the truth, and we're telling them fairy tales. And that's not fair to them. So that's the thing about the social engineering. Tell the truth about how, if that person is wealthy, bring into question how they got that wealth. Show them, you could even show them a timeline about how that wealth came from the enslavement of our people, so that we won't have our children seeing them in an idealized state or form. Because right now they look to a child, they look like the epitome of everything a human should be. But in fact, they are the opposite. So she's right. She's absolutely right. Tell them the truth. And that'll deal with the social engineering. Truth will help. Truth is truth, and you can prove it. And the other one is destroy the demon kin, don't feed the demons, and separation and power and blessings.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Sister Gwen. Sister Neff?
I agree with Elder Gwen. And what was the question again, Brother Maurice?
Social engineering. How do you stop it?
By rejecting everything that comes out of the white mind. Just that simple. What the elder said, and just rejection. It's okay for you to think your own thoughts. Period. It's okay for you to create. And I think as young people enter into the metaverse, reject everything that comes out of someone else. Let what is yours be fully yours, be organically your own. And so then you'll never have to point to, is this connected? I mean, and of course we have to decolonize our mind. And as you always said, we have to kill the nigger in our, I can't even say it. I can't even say it without laughing. You kill. I'll kill the nigger in me. You kill the nigger in you, and our God will reign supreme. That's what I'm talking about. Like, let's kill the niggers in ourselves and reject everything that comes out of the way.
Yes, ma'am. You want to add anything else to your closing comments?
That I'm loving this more and more, and I'm grateful for it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Sister Neff. Dot?
As I always say about this idea of social engineering, our way out of that is manufacturing consent. We need to control the intellectual, the mental diet that our children are exposed to. It's sort of the exact same thing, and I use this example often. It's not accidental that probably 99.99% of the graduates of Notre Dame come out pro-life, because their religion, their school, everything they've read has been aimed at getting them to understand what are why they should be pro-life instead of pro-choice. We need that within Black America. We need to have a significant infusion of Blackness in our children's minds. I believe it was, believe it or not, Brett Favre who said this when he was counseling one of the young football players who was asking him about how to raise his son. And he said, listen, all I can tell you is that you have to think about the socialization of your child as if it's a tape recorder that he's going to stop and play and listen to during crucial moments in his life. And you then have to ask yourself, whose voice do you want on that tape recorder? We need to put our voice on that tape recorder so that when our children do reach some crossroads, some understanding, some needing some guidance, they hear Sister Nep, they hear Sister Gwen, they hear my brother, that high side, they hear those voices instead of relying upon the voice of some middle class white woman who has never had their best interests and understands nothing about their struggle, where they need to be going and what they need to be thinking about. We got to be serious about putting that voice in our children's minds. Our children are Black, they should be thinking Black, and they should, at any moment of uncertainty, they should have something Black to pull on or someone Black to reach out to. And I yield with that, brother. Love you all.
Love you too, Doc. Thank you. And that is everything that y'all said, of course, is perfectly correct. And, I thought about how I raised my children. They little babies. And I was teaching them in the womb, the white man is the devil. And we ain't making no joke about it. That cracker is the real enemy. That's the real devil. That's what I taught them when they were still in the womb. And when they came out and they saw, who I tell you that is the devil. That is the enemy. We ain't had no problem about, how come we ain't white. We that wasn't even the issue. Wasn't even the issue at all. And my oldest girl, she's out there in California, Southern Cal. All these rich crackers out there. She ain't rich, but all them rich crackers out there. And I asked her, how you holding on? Oh, I'm holding on fine, Daddy. I ain't worried about them. I'm doing what I got to do, take care of my business, do what I got to do, because we got to conquer and build a world. We got to conquer and build a world. I said, I'm so proud of you, girl. Yeah, that's my number one. That's my number one. Our children can handle the knowledge that we got to give them. They can handle it. So we should never punk out and don't give it. Give it to them and let them handle it and watch them thrive with it. Watch them thrive. So I love it. Excellent. I can't wait for us to get into part 2 because it goes even deeper. And I love that, we're giving the information from our thoughts, what we know, what we see, how we interpret little things, and able to bring things out that, that I've missed, because I watched the video a few times before I get ready to play it and say, okay, this is the slots that we're going to look at. And when I'm listening to y'all and y'all pointing out things that I didn't even see the first, second, or third time. So, just the wealth of knowledge that we're getting. And of course, again, I'm writing my stuff down, taking notes, because it's class, it's learning. So as we always say, you kill the nigga in you, I'm gonna kill the nigga in me, and our God will reign supreme. We are Black First. Today, tomorrow, and forever. Love you, family. Peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom.
Good night. Love you all too.
Good.